A lot of professionals think they need more advanced English for work. Sometimes what they actually need is to stop communicating like they're still being evaluated. And this is something I think about all the time because I spent years inside both worlds, the exam world and the professional communication world. And they are not the same thing. So before we continue, I want to define something because I use this expression a lot. High stakes communication. What does it mean? When I say high stakes, I mean situations where the outcome matters professionally. Meetings, interviews, presentations, negotiations, leadership calls, client conversations. These are moments where the way you communicate affects trust, opportunities, authority, credibility, or the way people perceive you professionally. That's high stakes communication. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because many professionals assume that preparing for an international English exam automatically prepares them for international work environments. And sorry to say this, but not necessarily. Can exams help? Absolutely. I've spent years preparing students for Cambridge exams and different international certifications. Like most English teachers, I taught teenagers preparing for PET, FIRST, and other levels throughout the years. But one of the biggest professional experiences I ever had was when I worked at a school in Colombia. Let me tell you about this experience. Looking back now, I realize, and I still can't believe, the amount of work we were doing. I was around 27 years old, relatively new, brand new to the school world, and suddenly I became an area leader, which meant I was responsible for helping design an English curriculum from kindergarten all the way to grade 11. And this wasn't just open the textbook and teach grammar. No, we had to combine. We weren't allowed to use textbooks. We had to combine the Colombian curriculum, which I wasn't aware of because I'm Argentinian. So we had to combine the Colombian curriculum, the national saber exam requirements from Colombia, Cambridge exam preparation, and an international school-style approach inspired by IB education. For people who don't know, IB means International Baccalaureate. It's a much more holistic international education approach focused on critical thinking, communication, interdisciplinary learning, global perspectives, and not just memorization. So we were trying to build something huge, very big. We wanted vertical alignment, meaning students progressively developing skills from pre-kinder to graduation, and horizontal alignment too, meaning subjects connecting with each other across the curriculum, like biology, maths, English, blah, blah, blah. And we also created projects connecting students with schools in countries like Spain and Turkey. So I sometimes stop and think, I was 27 doing all of this because it was intense. I had to design assessment, speaking tasks, writing tasks, exam preparation strategies, and prepare students for different international exams year after year because I was teaching in 2021, but this was a plan designed for future teachers too. So yes, I know the exam world very well. And one thing I started noticing over time is that exams create very specific communication habits. Some useful, I must say, some useful, some not so useful in professional environments. For example, fillers. One thing exam students become very good at is filling every second with sound. because silence in an exam feels terrifying. If the student stops for too long, they immediately think, oh no, I'm losing points. So they start filling the space. Fillers such as, like, basically, and then, so yeah, anything to avoid silence. And we teach them these fillers. And yeah, this makes perfect sense in an exam. Because in exams, students are constantly being evaluated. The examiner needs evidence. I, as examiner, need evidence. The student feels pressure to produce language continuously. So naturally, they learn, keep talking, don't stop. But high-stakes professional communication works very differently. Because strong professional communication it's not about proving how much English you know. It's about making people trust your ideas. And those are two very different skills. I work with a lot of professionals preparing for interviews, meetings, leadership roles, presentations. And one of the biggest things we work on is learning how to tolerate silence, which sounds simple until you actually try it. I know I hate it because silence feels deeply uncomfortable when English isn't your first language. It is uncomfortable even in your native language as well. The moment there is a pause, people panic internally. They think they're going to notice my English. They're going to think I'm nervous. They're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. So they over-explain. And over-explaining is one of the clearest signs that someone still feels evaluated while communicating. Not leading, evaluated. And the problem is that in professional environments, attention is fragile. People are in 10 meetings a day, reading emails, checking Slack, thinking about deadlines. So if someone starts rambling for 3 minutes trying to sound advanced, people disconnect. Meanwhile, the strongest communicators are often the people who can pause, think, and say something clearly in 2 sentences. That's leadership communication. And I think this is where many professionals get frustrated because they spend years studying English, memorizing vocabulary, passing exams, trying to sound advanced, but nobody teaches them how to sound grounded, how to hold attention, how to pause, how to structure ideas under pressure, how to project calmness, how to disagree confidently, or how to lead a conversation without trying to prove themselves every second. And honestly, that's the real shift. Moving from I need to show my English to I need to communicate clearly. Because those are not the same thing. And again, I want to be very clear. International exams can absolutely help. They build discipline, vocabulary, reading skills, listening skills, structure, and those things matter. But passing an exam does not automatically teach someone how to lead in English, how to be a leader, because leadership communication requires something else entirely: presence, confidence under pressure, conciseness, emotional regulation, the ability to pause without collapsing internally. So one of the biggest mindset shifts I try to create in my classes is helping professionals stop feeling like students all the time. Because many highly qualified adults enter international meetings still communicating like someone waiting for approval. waiting for the correct answer, waiting for validation, trying not to make mistakes. And professional communication simply doesn't work like that. Real meetings are messy. Sometimes there isn't one correct answer. Sometimes you need to make a decision with incomplete information. Disagree diplomatically, simplify something complex, adapt quickly, lead. And none of that feels like a Cambridge speaking exam. So, no, preparing for an international exam and preparing for high stakes communication are not the same thing. Related? Absolutely, but not the same. And honestly, I think many professionals are much more capable than they realize. They don't necessarily need to sound more advanced. Sometimes they simply need to stop sounding like someone waiting to be graded. So I hope you find this useful.